Welcome to the Bill and Callie Show on WVLP LP 103.1 FM and streaming live at WVLP.org or on your TuneIn app. We are broadcasting live from the historic 1 Center Street building in beautiful Valparaiso, Indiana. The Bill and Callie Show is underwritten by Bill Moran and Callie Rosella. Now, here are Bill and Callie.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Bill and Kelly Show. I'm Bill Moran.
And I'm Callie Rosella.
And with us today, we'd like to give a very warm welcome to Nicole Parker, who is with the Lighthouse Recovery Home in Hammond. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
We're excited to have you.
Yes, definitely. And this is our first show of the new year.
That's right. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. So we hope that you all enjoyed the New Year celebrations, whether you're with family or with friends. I know Kelly and myself were with
a bunch of friends.
Oh, yeah. Neat friends. So, but welcome to our show, first one of the year. And as we've been leading to believe, things are going to get different here in just a bit. We're about to make a changeover in our show formatting, and we'll share that with you as we go along. So let's get to our guest right away. Welcome again, Nicole. And actually, we're so happy. We were kind of talking a bit before the show and kind of got some ideas where you came from. Why don't you, first of all, tell us a bit about yourself and where you came from, where you went to school, and that type of thing.
Okay. I moved. All right, I'm originally from California, from Sacramento, and I am the oldest of 8 kids through 3 marriages. So I started drinking when I was 15 years old. I only drank for 8 years, drank and used drugs. And so I went to 3 high schools 5 times. So the last high school I graduated from Arizona, Glendale, Arizona, is called Cactus High School. Class of 94. I ended up in Indiana, October of 99. I was given a plane ticket and told it was probably a good idea to leave the state of Montana. And I have my mom and 4 siblings here, so that's how I ended up in Indiana. And my plan was to cut back on my drinking, go to college, and turn my life around. And 8 months later, I sobered up. So basically about myself from that point on, when I moved here, I was 23, and I was bartending out in Hobart and working for my stepfather and his partner in a manufactured housing business / computer business, and I was pretty wild. I was drinking about 14 hours a day and using cocaine. I was running with people that sold it, and I was very unhappy. And I got to a point where I could no longer numb that pain drinking. And so I've had some legal trouble and was hospitalized, 0.49 blood alcohol level. So my drinking was very unmanageable. And I was actually at my mom's house, and she was upset with me because I was supposed to go to work the day before. I talked my boss into closing down the office at 2 o'clock to go drinking, and under the guise that I would return to work the next day, because I had a habit of not showing up for work. And I didn't finish drinking until 4:30 that next morning. And so when I arrived for work the next day, because I was too sick to work that following morning, my boss sent me home, and I was at my mom's house, and she was yelling. She was upset, and she was scared for me, of course, with everything she was hearing about me. And I heard this voice inside that said it's time. And I opened up the yellow pages and ripped out a page from there for rehab, and tried to find my way to South Lake, which is now Regional Mental Health. And kind of a funny story, they didn't have GPSs back then.
No, of course not.
No, and so I didn't really know my way around Maryville. I knew how to get to the gas stations and the bars from South Haven all the way to Lake Station. But I was driving up and down the roads, and I ended up stopping at this place, I walk in, and I have my yellow page, and I said, I need to check myself in for alcoholism, and it turned out it was a bone and joint rehab. And so the lady was so nice to me, she actually pulled out a map and highlighted the route to get to South Lake. So so that was the beginning of my sober journey. My father was my father retired at 43. He retired as a stockbroker, and he was a very military. He was a drill sergeant, so it wasn't unusual for me to hear the G-rated version of "I Want to Be an Airborne Ranger" as a kid. And he was his ex-wife was an alcoholic. His father died from alcoholism, so he participated in a 12-step program to learn how to deal with the alcoholic in his life. And I always joke around that he's a combat qualified Al-Anon. and so when I sobered up, I was disowned. I was written out of the will, and I was told, your dad's done with you. He's just done. You've caused too much pain. And that was even harder bottom than just going to treatment.
Sure.
Yeah, so we have a great relationship today, but it definitely took a lot of work. After treatment, I moved into the women's recovery home, which was located on Valparaiso Street. Back then it was a ranch house. And when I moved in, I was expecting a ranch house. And so I now know the difference, but I shared...
Looking for the horses in the backyard?
Yeah, the people playing volleyball in the front, stuff
exactly.
like that, yes. And so I lived there with 13 other women. I lived in that house for 14 months. And part of the time, there was 50 women in and out of that house while I lived there. And I participated in their IOP, relapse prevention, anger management, and I had to participate in therapy on Saturdays, and we were required to participate in support groups. And so I went to a lot of support group meetings and connected with the recovery community out here, and turned my life around. So that's a little bit about myself when I first sobered up. Thank you.
So what would you say time-wise was that when you, post-recovery, when you finally got out of recovery? And I realized after you left that house, what time was that about?
It was the week before September 11th. So actually, it was September 4th when I moved out. I moved into the Valparaiso Women's Club. The Valparaiso Women's Club, the junior club, actually, sorority, adopted the Women's Recovery Home. So there was a social worker by the name of Laura Smith, who, all of it, 30 years experience of volunteer time, that mentored us. Like Jimmy's Diner, I don't know if that's still around, but they donated $5. I bought my 2 packs of cigarettes with that money when I was my first sober Christmas, donated food, all of that, and she was the one that got me into the Valparaiso Women's Club, and I lived there for 2 years. And yeah, so when I was 6 months sober, I went to Ivy Tech. I enrolled in Ivy Tech over when it was right by Porter Stark off of Wall Street, and started my journey to enroll, continue through college. It was tough for me. It was not an easy road. I always struggled in school academically, and it turned out I had a 5th grade reading level, so I had to take all the basics and learn how to put a paragraph together, and it was tough. It was not easy for me.
Was it like a form of dyslexia?
No.
No, okay.
I think just I have a lot of trauma in my childhood, and everything that I've learned about trauma is that it kind of stunts you in different areas, and academically that was a big struggle for me. And so it was always kind of a joke that I would probably have to find someone to marry me because I wasn't really going to go far in life. But I was the first one to graduate from college.
Well, there you go. Nanny boo-boo.
My mom constantly said that about me when I was a kid, that I would never find someone to, oh my goodness, no wonder my mic hasn't been on.
Oh no.
That I would have to find someone to marry me. In fact, she claimed that she was giving me cooking lessons for that very reason. One thing I got to apologize to our listeners out there. Some of them may appreciate it. I didn't have my mic on this whole time.
Oh my. I did not realize
Way to start out the new year. Everyone said, this is good. Bill isn't on this. So let's talk about how then you got to where you are today, working with Lighthouse Recovery Home.
I am friends with the executive director, Beth Slesser-Snyder. I've known her for 18 years. I actually worked for Beth years ago when I moved out of the Women's Recovery Home. So I found out that they had opened up a house in Lafayette, and I've worked in the field of social work for many years, and one of the things that I found that was frustrating for me was that there was tons of waiting lists to go to rehab, to detox, that there was a huge waiting list for all the recovery homes in the state of Indiana. And I was excited about the Lighthouse out in Lafayette, and I've actually traveled to Lafayette several times to speak, share my story with the residents of the Lighthouse. I found out that there was a lady, Leslie McCormick, that wanted to open up a home, and that she and Beth met, and Beth opened up the Lighthouse Recovery Home in Hammond, Indiana. So I contacted Leslie to ask to sell tickets for her for the fundraiser that they had this last summer, and she discovered that I had lived in a recovery home and that I have continuous long-term recovery from that, so she asked me to be the speaker. So that's kind of how I got involved. I actually am not employed by them. I volunteer for them. I provide recovery coaching with the residents there, and and I do some administrative work for the house itself, like the policy and procedure manual and things, and so that's kind of my involvement. But the home has been open since May, I believe, of this last year, and they have up to six women at the moment in the home. And it looks like a regular house in the neighborhood, and when you walk inside, it's definitely, you have a homey feel in there. And there are some rooms where the residents share. They have bunk beds, and there's other single rooms in the house. And so, to answer your question.
So, how many residents, so going through the history, how many residents went through the Lighthouse?
So from what we have actually helped over 2,500 people struggling with substance abuse throughout the years. So the home in Hammond has housed both men and women. Originally started in Monticello, and we've had a number of houses. We've had some smaller homes, but we've been able to acquire this building. It looks like a church on the outside, and they have, I don't know the exact number of the residents that they have there, but all the men live in that home.
So that house was originally in Monticello, but then it reopened in Lafayette.
They moved to Lafayette.
And that's where it's at currently.
Correct.
And that's the house you described. It looks like a church.
Yes.
Actually, the one that's on the Facebook page.
Correct.
So, and the Facebook page, there's the actual umbrella group that has all these houses is called the Lighthouse Recovery Homes of the Tri-County
Tri-County
area. Yeah, so if in case anyone out there is looking for it, just give them an idea. And we'll
also put that information up on our site.
We'll definitely give some links to the Facebook page and website, whatever there is. So describe what life is like in the Lighthouse Recovery Home. What happens? What type of programs are involved? Are there cohort groups that people can get together and talk about individual things, or is there just like a one template that everyone goes through?
Both homes actually are a little bit different. The homes are a little bit different. In the Lafayette, they have what's called Sober School on Sunday evenings, and Beth Snyder is actually the instructor of that. She's our executive director. The residents are required to listen to, we call it the Joe McHugh Steps We Took videos. It's on, he's actually written a number of books, and he reviews the 12 steps on a chalkboard. And so they're required to watch all the videos on that steps 1 through 12, which is from the 12-step model. And then the clients are required to attend meetings every day. If they are employed, just one a day. If they're unemployed, 2 a day. While they are seeking employment, we require them to complete 25 hours of community service, which could be done in the home or in the local community in different ways to help out.
That's wonderful.
It is, because we need to learn how to be productive members of society, and most of us have lost the ability to function.
Right. And how to function with people out there who aren't going through the same thing you are, people who are living a sober life, and learning how to interact with them, because it is a different world out there.
It is. I actually benefited from the Leadership Institute at IUN, and so Keith Kirkpatrick, he was my coach, and he had to teach me how to live outside of the recovery world. I didn't even know how to have small talk, and that was one of my assignments. I had to speak with, I'd have 2 conversations a week with people where I didn't learn their life story, because they automatically become your therapist, or where I talk about recovery. And that was so difficult for me, and that's difficult for a lot of us.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because that's our world.
Yeah, there's a lot of people don't know how. I'm talking to people who have gone through recovery. They don't know what a normal life is. They jump from childhood to using, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're clean, and now they need all the skills that they really.
Yes. What kind of things do they do at the home to get these people ready for life outside of this kind of world?
Some of the basics, independent living skills. So how do I manage a kitchen, make dinner for other residents, chores, keep my room clean, some basics like that. Some of the other things is that they participate in recovery coaching with myself, so we talk about goals. So every week we meet and we'll review your goals, 5 management by objective, so 5 goals for your day, your week, month, and 6 months. And every week we meet, we actually rewrite your goals over and over again to see what your progress has been made. And see some of the other things, like with the community service. Leslie is connected in the Hammond area. She knows so many people, so the residents actually, it's not that hard for them to find employment right away.
Good.
She's very talented in networking in that region. And so, I'm trying to think of some of the other things. And I know for myself, when I first sobered up, I utilized a lot of the community resources in this area. And so I had kind of develop some humility and, and approach places like the trustees and food banks and ask for help. And so sometimes some of the residents have that as well.
Right.
Yeah. But most of us are, through our employment, some of us return to school. There's some residents that have Social Security disability, so they participate in the 25 hours. And I can answer your
Now, do they help, help you find the job and everything, but do they help you find some place to live and tools for how to get furniture and things like that, and how to budget and learn to live?
Some of those things, through the recovery coaching, the goal is it's person-centered. And so when I meet with you, you tell me, okay, Nicole, when I leave the recovery home, I want to move into an apartment and have a car. And so we talk about all the things that you need to do between now and then. A lot of motivational interviewing to kind of guide you to find those resources yourself.
Great.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. We have one resident that actually just put in her 2-week notice to move into her own apartment, and she's been gainfully employed. And when I first met her, she was fresh out of treatment, just moved into the home. She couldn't even put a sentence together. And she's working where she does a lot of project management for this company. And it's neat to see just the changes with her.
Sure.
We have another person that manages the Lighthouse men's home. And he's 9 months sober, and he's probably the best house manager they've ever had. And he manages making sure that the men are able to get to their appointments, get the resources, everything from TB shots to staying on top of their meetings and their program.
Well, that's wonderful.
It is.
Yeah, it's really great.
One thing I've been a fan of Gladwell and his books about what makes a successful person. And one of the things that I'm very intrigued at, some of the top CEOs, some of the more successful people in the world are not necessarily the perfect raised. They've actually high instances of them having a learning disability or dealing with substance abuse. So post all that, they have...
You have to learn how to work harder.
Yeah, well, basically work harder, and that provides like a slingshot effect. And they end up being highly successful and more successful than most because they've overcome adversity to get where they're at. And there's, I guess, both an appreciation and also a drive that are created that are just unmatchable. So it's amazing. But anyway, I always like to draw a parallel to that because there is, we look at some of the people here that, there's an attorney in the area that, went through recovery himself, and he's one of the more prominent attorneys and has been on our radio show, Mitch Peters.
Yes.
And
I know him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and he's a great
awesome.
guy, awesome guy. And, if you look at some of the larger rehab, Heartland Recovery, their CEO is gone through recovery, and ACT has had a grueling experience with recovery, 25 years of going through recovery before he finally found the right combination.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Recovery Works in Maryville. So there's people that come back to give the community, and people that are out doing amazing things.
And speaking of the community, are there who would they contact, or if there are businesses or people out there who would like to donate or have jobs available or are looking for a way to help? in this, what do they do?
That's a great question. We have a website, lighthouserecoveryhome.org, and basically there's a couple things. One, we have Be a Beacon, and the Beacon program is where you can make donations through our website, and that money, our goal is to give a free bed for one male and one female every month. And so our beacons support the money that's donated through there will offset the expense for that. So then that way, someone who is looking for a sober place to live but can't afford the cost will have that opportunity. With the Lighthouse in Hammond, one of the things, Laura Smith from the Junior Valparaiso Women's Group was a life changer for me. And I mean, she brought Christmas gifts for the residents, so then that way they had something to give to their kids. Turkey dinners, Christmas meal. Walgreens donated makeup for all of us residents. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah, so for people that have the ability to connect with other corporations for donations, that would be helpful. Grant writers, people that have the experience writing grants, because I know we have just one person from the home from the board of directors that does that, but I would love to have more options, more people available that would help. So even with Laura, giving an hour of your time to a resident, and taking them out to eat. She took me to Annalisa's, myself and a group of girls, bought us a cup of coffee and a bagel, and we went to a consignment store, and she paid $2 for each of us to buy 4 books. And when it came time for me, I found a book. It was called She Comes Undone by Wally Lamb, and I didn't know which book to put down, and she pulled out an extra 50 cents, and it was a moment where I was so blown away by that. And it could be 50 cents is a big deal to anybody, but for me, to have someone that I saw as a pillar of society that cared about myself, to buy that extra book, it was just such a changing moment for me, because I didn't think people cared about us. I didn't think society cared about recovery people. So some other options too is, sponsor a resident, because the rent sometimes is difficult when you are trying to get ahead with finding employment. So I think a great idea, even though we need to be self-supporting, is,
well, sometimes the struggles are overwhelming. I mean, you're already doing so much just to try and get yourself back to normal.
It was $100 for myself in 2000, and I went to the churches and First Contact. Yeah, and so, I remember I was told, don't get behind on your rent, Nicole. And so, thankfully, when I went to the churches, I was I was 6 months sober, and I said, okay, I said a prayer. This is the last time I'm doing this. I'll pay it forward one day. Please help. And one of the churches that normally gave $25 paid $100 towards my rent. So I went from 250 behind to 250 over. So sponsoring a resident would be great.
Sure.
Let's talk just a bit about First Contact. I know we've had them on our show. Their director came out and explained what they do, but some people may not know that. So First Contact is a cohort of entities in the area that form a committee that evaluate the needs of people that are short on the rent, lost job, and so on. And so they go out and find help, whether it's through their own funding or finding it through the churches are participating. Is there anything you want to add to that?
They were great because, the trustees, you receive a denial letter, and then you immediately are directed to go to First Contact. And I believe back then in 2000, I received a check for $50 from them and a list of churches that will help with rent. And I remember there were, they guided us to where all the clothing banks are, like St. Paul Church. They had this little closet, and I know it's a lot larger now today, but that's where I actually picked up some clothes. What else did First Contact do? They connected me with the Salvation Army. Salvation Army paid $50 towards my rent. They give $50 once every 6 months. And I believe they're a collaboration of churches.
Right.
Yeah, great organization. I don't know what they're like today, though, but back then they were helpful.
They're still working out there to help people. In fact, it's a myriad of problems they try to address. People who lose their job, become homeless. Their goal is to either try to help themselves or go out there and find help. And and then they have a variety of means that they, like I said, mostly churches, like you said, and some private individuals. Talking about finding financial help. In fact, that's how we got in contact. Is you made me aware of a masquerade party on New Year's Eve.
Yes.
That would all the benefits went to the Lighthouse and Recovery House in Hammond. So how did that go? How did
it was successful. They were able to raise some money, which was great, and it was a clever idea that Leslie came up with. So if you didn't have a mask, they provided it for you. The girls
cool.
actually made the mask
Awesome.
for everyone, and so they had a silent auction. There was music, dancing, huge buffet style food. They raised, a number of dollars. That will help.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And what other kind of fundraisers do they have going?
Well, the one is the Beacon. We actually started the Amazon Smile account. So if you plan to shop on Amazon, which I do regularly, I actually went to the Amazon Smile site, and then I entered Lighthouse Recovery, and then it came up for the tri-state area, and so we actually have an account through them. So that's kind of a small way
Kelly?
to raise money.
Sure. Yeah, I know.
You could fund many organizations.
I could fund many organizations. Don't think I don't.
Literally, our basement looks like a distribution center Amazon. It does, with people's names, and this is the largest gift giver in the world, I think.
Not quite, but
close.
Pretty close.
So you got to remember that.
Yeah.
What, Smile Amazon?
Amazon Smile.
Amazon Smile. So
they give, I believe it's 0.05% of every sale, so it doesn't cost you any extra money. Amazon itself makes those donations for nonprofit,
which is really great. Do you have any kind of a big gala or any kind of big yearly thing that you do?
Well, we've talked about actually making the Masquerade Ball an annual,
very cool.
party. That was actually, Beth and I were talking about that today, so that's something that we want to do. The fundraiser that we had this last summer, actually, speaking of which, I reached out to you. I went on Twitter, and I sent a tweet out to all of the mayors and officials, and Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson actually bought 4 tickets from me and heard my story. Yeah, so
awesome.
that was pretty amazing for me. Like, I sent her a tweet.
I know, very cool.
So we're just getting off the ground actually out here in Hammond. So we've only had 2 fundraisers, but we do plan to continue to have more.
Great.
And I would love to connect with people because this is a new area for me. I have several goals. 1, I want to learn how to write grants, and 2, I would like to create a committee where we could get creative people that like to throw fundraisers, and really to help support Leslie because she does a lot for the home.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
So. Yeah, I mean, anybody wants to reach out to me, manager, at lighthouserecoveryhome.org, and shoot some ideas and their phone numbers.
And do you have a Facebook page, or
than
just the website?
We just have the website. I actually manage the website with Beth, so they can reach out to me there. And then I don't know if you want to put a copy of this on the
and we
on
will
your site.
absolutely put a copy of this on the site.
Yeah.
And we tagged the Lighthouse in our promotional thing that we did. You probably saw I tagged you in as well. So
thank you.
Yeah, and we'll do that again.
Make sure we put all this information up there.
But actually, when we go to put up the video, all this will be attached to it. So.
And when you do have fundraisers and things coming up, please let us know, because we would love to get that word out there and have you back on to talk about them and
that would
everything.
Be great.
Yeah, we'd love it.
Yeah, we by all means, and actually we are in Highland, so
we're local. We live in Highland.
Yeah,
nice,
we live in Highland. We have a portable studio, so we can come out and meet you at Sip Coffee House or any place actually.
That would be great. I would love for you to meet Leslie.
Yeah.
She's hilarious.
Good.
She's
We love
hilarious.
that.
Yeah, she's passionate. My goal, in mine, not mine alone, but for Lighthouse, all of us, our goal is to see a sober living home for both men and women in every town, every community, because when I sobered up, we only had the Moraine House and the Women's Recovery Home, and in Valparaiso we have a great support system for substance abuse here, but Hammond is the only community in all of Lake County that has a recovery home for women, and then we have the Serenity House. I believe the Salvation Army has that for men. So I would love to see us the ability to open up homes everywhere.
Absolutely. Well, now, what does it cost for a resident? I mean, what are they paying, or what is their cost to go through this program?
It's $160 a week, so that covers the shelter, food, it covers the treatment, And like we have transportation there, so there's we have a designated resident that will be able to transport you to doctor's appointments and things, and then that gives you the opportunity to participate in the recovery coaching and then some of the sober school treatment.
Cool.
And then there is a deposit. And so it's 1 week's rent plus the intake, and so that sometimes varies. So right now it's $210, I believe.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Now, do people often find some way of paying for that to get in? I mean, do they? Insurance pays some of this, right?
No.
No, they don't.
Doesn't pay
They
any
don't.
of it.
No, it's not through insurance. Once we have the certification, then there may be some other funding sources that could help residents offset the expense. But at the moment, a lot of times we have clients that either they make the payment, we have a PayPal account through the website, or sometimes their parents or family members or a friend will make the payment to help with that. And then,
And
like
then
I
sponsors, people who
the
help
Beacon
sponsor a
program.
person. Yeah.
Yes. So it is difficult because most of us are, I was homeless at times when I was drinking. And so when I came out of the treatment center, I didn't have a home to go to. So
Now, is there a way on the Beacon thing where you could say, like, every month I want to donate $20 and it'll just automatically,
Yes.
you can sign up for
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Oh, okay,
That's a great thing.
Because a
Yes.
lot of people want, they like to do that. They want to give a lump sum, but then they want to keep helping.
Yes.
Right. Or they don't have a lump sum, but they want to help out a little bit, and even $5 a month is a help.
Well, you just reminded me too, on Facebook, we can select for our birthdays a fundraiser.
Absolutely.
I have seen at least $2,500 raised for the women's home here through birthdays alone. Leslie, I believe, raised $875. I raised $575 for my birthday. So, and you can designate this will go to the men's house or this will go to
right.
the women's home. So,
Okay, so it's on there. You can find it on
Yes,
Facebook to
so-
do for your fundraisers. Hey, there you go,
Yes.
people out there with January birthdays. Start thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because that's easy to do. I mean,
Oh, it is very
yeah,
easy
very
to
easy.
do.
Facebook's provides some unbelievable mechanisms for fundraising
to help.
Definitely.
So, what about so the masquerade ball? You're considering doing that annually.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other events that you do that are fundraisers?
At this moment, nothing in this area. I know that Beth has had fundraisers up in Lafayette, but at this moment, no. But we will be proactive in planning them a couple times a year.
Okay.
So, but we have an Instagram account for Lighthouse Recovery, and then also our Facebook page. So, like our page and follow it, and then that way you can see some
On
of the
Facebook,
events.
what's it under?
It's under Lighthouse Recovery Home.
Okay, just
And
Lighthouse Recovery.
Lighthouse.
Recovery home for the Tri-County, right?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and so you can follow that, and we'll have events on there
Yeah.
listed.
I'm going to assume if you just type in Lighthouse Recovery, it'll pop up and you
Yes.
can just
Yeah, there's
click
a-
on that link.
And you'll see a picture of a lighthouse.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then there you have information from all the homes that are under that umbrella.
Yes.
So that's good. And then any information specifically, Hammond's also up there. So great. Is there anything else you want to share with us about the home and maybe other plans that are going on? One question I do before we move on, though, is there a typical stay for a person? Have you guys averaged that out? What is the average stay for a person?
6 months. And so we recommend longer than that, 6 months to 18 months. And the reason why is because, and there was the benefit when I lived at the recovery home for 14 months, there's post-acute withdrawal symptoms. It takes 18 months physiologically for the addict to really heal. And so a lot of times we appear that we're jumping off the wall, bouncing off the walls and stuff. It takes us a while to physiologically just heal from our addiction. So taking that time to live in a home at least a year would be in their best interest. But most people
Right.
get impatient and leave after 6
Yeah.
months. Yeah.
Then are there also resources for them even after they leave the home, say programs that they could come back to?
Definitely, they can come back to the house. They can mentor residents. The one thing is that while they're living in our homes, is that we connect them to the recovery communities. I mean, we support different paths to recovery, but in the Hammond home, predominantly the women actually attend the 12-step meetings out there. So by the time they leave the home, they have a sponsor, a group of
A little bit of a support group.
a big support group. I mean, I am a member in long-term recovery who benefited from 12-step programs, and I'm still active in that. And when I moved out of the recovery home, I had a whole resource of people that I could fall back on. that's one of the problems that we have when we move out of these homes, is that if we don't have that support system, when we fall, we have no one to catch us.
Right.
And so that's why sometimes we see, well, there's people that doubt whether or not we stay sober for long periods of time, because most of us are so isolated and we are ashamed, and we come from those closed family systems. So one of the goals for us is that we ensure that you have that support system when you move out, and that's actually very beneficial.
And that's something I heard as a common thread from some of the folks living in the centers out here, that they all felt it was important during that period of time, because when relapse does happen, it happens when you're lonely and disconnected, and you're looking for something to help you with that feeling, to dampen that feeling. And so that's important, and that's what Recovery Connection does out here in Porter County. They try to make sure that those resources are available.
I'm excited. Valparaiso has so many great resources in Recovery Connection, Veterans Court. I love veterans. My husband was in the Marine Corps, and so he works with a gentleman that was a graduate of the Veterans Court. I think Judge Gent, it was her very last day. So I actually was able to hear her story, and Governor Holcomb was there. There's so many great things. Another thing that's great is that most of us have criminal history. In our drinking, a lot of us have DUIs and different things, and so Governor Holcomb, which I think is great, is we put something in action where on your job application, they're no longer allowed to ask if we have any felonies or misdemeanors, so then that way you can get to know us, because a lot of us have those labels that prevent us from moving forward.
Right. Somebody sees something on an application and automatically it's like, oh, that kind of a person, and don't judge a book by its cover.
No, because we were that child in the school that your parents wanted us to hang out with a lot of times. A lot of us come from, different good families, and we struck the lottery with this addiction.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we as a society are actually getting smarter about recovery? Because I could remember, like we shared before the show started, about people that I knew and the horrible experiences that they had 15 years ago that they bounced, and they continued using. Do you feel that now with all these resources we're finally getting smarter, both on, even if you are arrested, that there are resources out there to help you out?
Yes, in fact, in Indiana, I'm a trained recovery coach, and so a number of the recovery coaches, they have a pilot right now in LaPorte. So when a police officer, EMT, they encounter someone like myself, there's a recovery coach that will meet with them, that will help connect them to resources. All the way from and this is not a political comment at all, but from the White House down to our local governments, they are seeing us more as sick people, that the disease model that need treatment, rather than looking at us as lack of willpower. So yes, I do believe that as a society but we still have a long way to go.
Oh yeah,
a long way to go, because there's a lot of, and I don't know what the right word is, I think, lack of understanding or judgment, or some people have been hurt by people like ourselves back in the past, and so they look at us through that trauma lens, and they're not able to separate us from the person. They may not even realize they're seeing us through a trauma lens. My father was so bitter after his ex-wife, who was an alcoholic, that when I came along, I restored his faith that people actually can get sober and stay sober. So
we had a roundtable discussion with parents and family members and friends of people that were going through recovery, and you can appreciate that, but at the same time, all of them began to grow as individuals after that, learning, yes, that was not them, that was the substance that was doing that to them. So it took them a while to gain trust back, realizing that wasn't my son, that wasn't my daughter, that wasn't my friend, my granddaughter. It was the substance talking. And I think that's what we're going through now, is this prejudice against someone that has been a user it's beginning to look at as an illness as opposed to a